Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The Unlikely Guardian. In the bustling spaceport of New Shanghai, Marcus Chen stood out like a supernova in a dark nebula. Not because of his appearance, his worn leather jacket and cargo pants were standard fare for a freelance cargo pilot. What made him different was his complete lack of cybernetic enhancements in a world where even street vendors sported neural interfaces and synthetic limbs. The locals called him pure strain behind his back, sometimes with derision, sometimes with awe. Marcus didn't care. He'd seen too many friends lose themselves to the allure of technological improvement, watching their humanity fade with each upgrade until they were little more than organic machines. As he weaved through the crowded marketplace, his attention was drawn to a commotion near the luxury goods district. A group of chrome-plated thugs had cornered two figures against a holographic advertisement display. Even from a distance, their alien nature was apparent. Their skin shimmered with an iridescent purple hue, and their hair seemed to float as if suspended in water. "Final warning, Your Highness," the lead thug's artificially modulated voice boomed. "The hegemony wants you and the kid. Come quietly, and nobody gets hurt." The taller alien, clearly female, stood protectively in front of a child who couldn't have been more than 6 Earth years old. Despite her evident fear, her voice rang with authority. "I am Princess Lyra of House Celestial. I will not return to be a puppet in your master's games." Marcus should have walked away. It wasn't his fight, and he had a cargo run to Proxima Centauri, scheduled in 3 hours. But something in the princess's voice, the desperate determination of a mother protecting her child, struck a chord he thought he'd buried long ago. 5 against 2, he called out, approaching casually. "Seems a bit unsporting, doesn't it?" The thugs turned, their cybernetic eyes whirring as they assessed this new variable. The leader's face split into a chrome-toothed grin. "Move along, pure strain. This is hegemony business." Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "See, that's the problem with you chromeheads. You're so reliant on your upgrades, you've forgotten what the human body is truly capable of." Before the leader could respond, Marcus moved. To the augmented thug's surprise, their enhanced reflexes couldn't track his movements. Years of training in ancient martial arts, combined with a lifetime of refusing technological shortcuts, had pushed his natural abilities beyond what most thought possible. The first thug went down to a precise strike to a nerve cluster that no targeting system was programmed to recognize. The second swung a cybernetic arm, only to find himself flipped over Marcus's shoulder, his own momentum used against him. The third and fourth attacked simultaneously, their movements predictable patterns learned from combat software rather than real experience. Within moments, 4 of the 5 lay groaning on the ground, their expensive augmentations proving worthless against pure human skill and instinct. The leader backed away, his confidence shattered. "This isn't over," he snarled, before activating his jump enhancers and fleeing into the crowd. Marcus turned to the aliens, noting how the princess still maintained her protective stance. "You okay?" The princess studied him with eyes that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. "You're completely human. No augmentations at all?" "Pure strain and proud," Marcus shrugged. "Look, those guys will be back with reinforcements. I've got a ship and a cargo run to make. If you need a lift." The little girl peeked out from behind her mother. "Mommy, his aura, it's so bright. Like a star." The princess's expression shifted from wariness to determination. "I am Lyra, and this is my daughter Arya. We seek asylum from the hegemony. I can offer myself as concubine to any who would protect us." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, Your Highness, I'm not interested in concubines. But I've got space on my ship and a strong dislike for bullies, especially the chrome-plated kind." For the first time, Lyra's royal composure cracked slightly, revealing genuine surprise. "You would help us without demanding anything in return?" "Well," Marcus grinned, hearing the distant whine of security vehicles approaching, "I wouldn't say no to some company on long hauls. Space gets pretty lonely sometimes. But first, we should probably run." As they raced through the marketplace toward the docking bays, Arya giggling despite the danger, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: purpose. He'd rejected the world's march toward artificial perfection because he believed in human potential. Now, he had a chance to prove that one unaugmented human could stand against an empire of machines. The adventure was just beginning, and for once, Marcus was looking forward to missing his delivery deadline. Flight through the stars. Marcus's ship, the natural selection, wasn't much to look at. An old Horizon-class freighter, it lacked the sleek lines and holographic displays of modern vessels. But like its captain, what the ship lacked in flashy technology, it made up for in reliability and hidden strength. "It's rather antiquated," Lyra observed as they rushed up the boarding ramp, the sound of hegemony security forces growing closer. Marcus chuckled while initiating the startup sequence, all manual controls, no neural interfaces in sight. "She may not look pretty, but she's got it where it counts. Plus, no AI means they can't hack us remotely." Little Arya bounced excitedly in the co-pilot's seat, her ethereal hair flowing in invisible currents. "Look, Mommy, actual buttons. Like in the history archives." The ship rumbled to life just as the first hegemony patrol vehicles rounded the corner. Marcus's hands danced across the controls with practiced precision, the engines roaring in response to his touch rather than computer commands. "Might want to strap in," he warned as the ship lifted off. "This takeoff won't be regulation standard." Instead of following the designated flight path, Marcus rolled the ship sideways, squeezing through a gap between cargo containers that modern autopilots would have deemed too risky. Behind them, hegemony vessels scrambled to pursue, their AI pilots calculating optimal intercept trajectories. "They're deploying magnetic nets," Lyra called out, watching the tactical display. Marcus grinned. "Good thing we're not dependent on electronics then." He pulled a lever, and suddenly all power to the engines cut out. The pursuing ship's targeting systems tracked their predicted arc upward, but Marcus had let them drop into a controlled fall, gliding silently between the towering skyscrapers of New Shanghai. But we're falling." Lyra gripped her seat tightly. "Falling with style," Marcus corrected, using manual thrusters to make minute adjustments. Sometimes the best way to beat superior technology is to do something so crazy no computer would calculate it as a possibility. Just before they would have crashed into the lower levels, Marcus reignited the main engines. The ship roared back to life, shooting through the Undercity's maze of support structures and abandoned buildings. The hegemony ships, bound by safety protocols and AI limitations, couldn't follow. As they broke atmosphere, Arya clapped with delight. "That was amazing. Can we do it again?" "No," Lyra said quickly, though her stern expression was betrayed by a slight smile. Their relief was short-lived. 3 hegemony cruisers hung in orbit, their massive forms blocking the obvious escape routes. Marcus studied them thoughtfully while keeping their ship in the planet's sensor shadow. "Those ships are fully automated," he explained. "State-of-the-art AI, predictive targeting, the works. But you know what they don't have? Human intuition." Lyra leaned forward. "What are you planning?" "Something monumentally stupid," Marcus admitted. Back in the early days of spaceflight, pilots used to perform a maneuver called a gravity slingshot. Modern ships don't do it anymore because AI considers it too unpredictable. Understanding dawned in Lyra's galaxy-filled eyes. "You're going to slingshot around the planet? But the gravitational forces will be pretty intense," Marcus nodded. "But this old girl was built before inertial dampeners were standard. She can take it. Question is, can you?" Before Lyra could protest, Marcus threw the ship into a steep dive back into the atmosphere. The hull glowed red-hot as they accelerated, using the planet's gravity to build up speed. The hegemony cruisers, finally detecting them, opened fire with their automated weapons. "They're shooting where we'll be," Marcus explained, his voice steady despite the ship's shuddering. "But we won't be there." His hands never stopped moving across the controls, making countless micro-adjustments that no computer would think to try. They screamed through the atmosphere, the ship groaning in protest. Just when it seemed they'd burn up, Marcus pulled up sharply. They shot past one of the cruisers so close they could see individual hull plates. The massive ship's AI, confronted with a trajectory its programming insisted was impossible, hesitated for crucial seconds. By the time the cruisers recalculated, the natural selection had used the planet's gravity to fling them clear, accelerating to speeds their engines could never achieve alone. The pursuing ships, bound by their safety protocols and predictive algorithms, could only watch as their quarry vanished into the depths of space. In the sudden quiet of their escape, Lyra released her white-knuckled grip on the armrests. That was... She searched for words. Awesome. Arya finished for her, bouncing in her seat. Mr. Marcus, you fly like the ancient star dancers in our legends. Marcus raised an eyebrow at Lyra. Star dancers? Mythical figures who could navigate the spaces between stars using nothing but instinct and skill, she explained, a new respect in her voice. We thought they were just stories. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, Marcus said, finally allowing himself to relax slightly. Technology isn't evil, but relying on it exclusively means forgetting what we're naturally capable of. As they plotted a course deeper into unexplored space, Lyra watched their unlikely savior quietly. Here was a human who had rejected his own species' rush toward artificial perfection, yet in doing so had achieved something remarkably close to those same ideals through purely natural means. Where will we go? She asked finally. Marcus's eyes twinkled. I know a few places where the hegemony's influence hasn't reached. Colonies that still value human and alien ability over artificial enhancement. But first, he patted the ship's console affectionately, we need to make sure they can't track us. I know a guy in the Outer Rim who specializes in going off-grid. Fair warning though, he's even more of a pure strain fanatic than I am. As the stars streaked by outside, Arya had already fallen asleep in her seat, a peaceful smile on her face. For the first time since their flight began, Lyra felt something close to hope. Perhaps there was still a place in the galaxy for those who chose to remain natural in an increasingly artificial universe. The Outer Rim's secret. The Outer Rim wasn't so much a place as it was a state of mind. Here, on the edges of known space, the hegemony's influence faded like a bad signal. Marcus guided the natural selection through a dense asteroid field, a route no AI would attempt. Welcome to New Darwin, he announced as they emerged from the field, revealing a massive asteroid that had been hollowed out into a hidden spaceport. It's invisible to scanners, Lyra realized, studying the sensor readings. How? No technology to detect, Marcus explained. The whole station is analog mechanical systems, chemical processors, even the air recycling runs on principles from the 21st century. It's not pretty, but it works. As they docked, Arya pressed her face against the viewport, fascinated by the bustling activity. Unlike the chrome and neon of New Shanghai, New Darwin was all brass and steel, its inhabitants conspicuously free of cybernetic enhancements. Marcus Chen, you old fossil, a booming voice greeted them as they disembarked. A tall woman with weathered dark skin and gray dreadlocks strode toward them. Still flying that museum piece? Dr. Sarah Blackwood, Marcus introduced her to his companions. The finest non-enhanced physician in human space, and a royal pain in my backside. Sarah's sharp eyes took in Lyra and Arya's alien features. Celestials, she whispered. Haven't seen your kind since the hegemony declared your species in need of technological uplift. Lyra stiffened. You know of us? Honey, I've been studying natural species evolution for 40 years. Your people's biological capabilities are legendary. The way you process energy, your natural healing abilities. Sarah shook her head. The hegemony couldn't stand that nature had produced something their precious technology couldn't replicate. They followed Sarah through the station's winding corridors. Unlike the sterile environments of modern space stations, New Darwin thrummed with life. Gardens grew in zero-gravity chambers, their plants specially bred for space. People worked with their hands, using tools rather than neural interfaces. The pure strain movement isn't just about rejecting augmentation, Sarah explained as they walked. It's about proving that natural evolution can solve problems just as effectively as artificial enhancement. Sometimes better. They entered her lab, a fascinating blend of old and new. Mechanical microscopes sat beside carefully maintained chemical analyzers. On the walls, charts tracked the natural adaptations of various species to space life. The hegemony thinks the only way forward is through artificial improvement, Sarah continued, preparing some equipment. They can't accept that given time and the right conditions, life adapts on its own. Your people proved that, Princess. Lyra's eyes widened. You know who I am? News travels, even out here. The celestial princess who refused to let her people become the hegemony's next improvement project. Sarah's voice held clear approval. Now, let's make sure you didn't pick up any tracking nanotech during your escape. As Sarah worked, Marcus explained their situation. The doctor's expression grew increasingly concerned. They're getting desperate, she said finally. The hegemony's enhancement programs are hitting a wall. More and more augmented humans are experiencing neural degradation. They thought studying the Celestials might provide answers. Neural degradation? Marcus leaned forward. You mean? The human brain can only handle so much artificial enhancement before it starts breaking down. The hegemony's been keeping it quiet, but their most heavily augmented citizens are literally losing their minds. Arya, who had been quietly exploring the lab, suddenly spoke up. That's why their auras are so dim and fragmented. The adults turned to her. What do you mean, sweetheart? Sarah asked gently. Celestial children can see life energy, Lyra explained. It's an ability we usually grow out of, but, what exactly do you see, Arya? The little girl scrunched up her face in concentration. Normal humans glow bright, like Mr. Marcus. But the metal people in the city, their light is all broken and dark in places. Except. She pointed at Sarah, you glow almost as bright as he does. Sarah and Marcus exchanged meaningful looks. Out of the mouths of babes, Sarah murmured. We've been theorizing that extensive augmentation disrupts the body's natural energy fields, but we had no way to prove it. The hegemony would never accept such evidence, Lyra said bitterly. They're convinced technology is the only path forward. Maybe not, Marcus said slowly, an idea forming. But if we could prove that natural human potential can match or exceed augmented capabilities. Sarah caught on quickly. The Pure Strain Olympics. It's happening in 3 months on Europa. Natural humans competing against augmented ones in various challenges. The hegemony agreed to it as a publicity stunt, thinking they'd humiliate us. But with what we know now. Marcus turned to Lyra. Would you be willing to testify? To demonstrate what natural evolution can achieve? Lyra hesitated. It would be dangerous. The hegemony won't dare touch you during an Olympic event, Sarah assured her. Too many independent witnesses. And if we can prove that their augmentation program is actually harmful, we could save both our peoples, Lyra finished, hope kindling in her eyes. Marcus grinned. Well, I was getting bored with simple cargo runs anyway. Who's up for infiltrating the biggest sporting event in human space? As they began planning their daring mission, none of them noticed Arya standing by a window, watching the streams of energy that flowed through the station. In her unique vision, she could see patterns forming, connections strengthening. Something was changing in the universe's very fabric, and somehow, their little group was at the center of it all. The game was about to change, and the hegemony had no idea what was coming. Training days. 3 weeks into their preparation for the Pure Strain Olympics, Marcus was beginning to question his sanity. Sarah's training program was brutal, combining ancient martial arts with specialized exercises designed to push natural human capabilities to their absolute limits. Again. Sarah barked as Marcus picked himself up from the training mat. The station's variable gravity chamber allowed them to simulate different competitive environments. Today, they were working at 1.5 Earth gravity. You know, Marcus grunted, resuming his stance, when I suggested this plan, I didn't realize I'd be the one competing. Who else? Sarah challenged. You're already known in the pure strain community. More importantly, you've demonstrated abilities that match or exceed many augmented humans. You're our proof of concept. From the observation area, Lyra watched with growing fascination. Over the past weeks, she'd seen Marcus transform. His movements, already impressive, had become almost supernatural in their precision. Without relying on any technology, he was achieving feats that even her people would consider remarkable. Watch his aura, Mommy! Arya exclaimed. It's like dancing fire. Other pure strain athletes had begun arriving at New Darwin, drawn by whispers of something big in the works. Each brought their own natural talents, runners whose training techniques dated back to ancient tribes, climbers who could scale sheer walls without equipment, swimmers who had adapted to life in Europa's oceans. The human body is capable of incredible things, Sarah explained during a break. Our ancestors survived ice ages, crossed oceans, and adapted to every environment Earth threw at them. The hegemony forgot that in their rush to improve humanity. But it wasn't just physical training. Marcus spent hours studying footage of augmented athletes, learning to predict the patterns in their AI-assisted movements. They're technically perfect, he noted, but that's their weakness. No creativity, no adaptation. They do exactly what their programming says is optimal, every single time. Like in your ship? Lyra asked, joining him at the viewing screen. They couldn't follow us because you did something illogical? Exactly. Marcus rewound a clip of an augmented gymnast. Watch, every movement is mathematically precise. But in a real competition, conditions aren't perfect. Wind, temperature, fatigue, these all require instant adjustments that can't be pre-programmed. Lyra had her own role to play. Working with Sarah, she documented the natural abilities of her people, their enhanced healing, their energy manipulation, their adaptive biology. All achieved through evolution, without a single technological implant. The hegemony's going to try to discredit us, Sarah warned during a strategy session. They'll claim we're using hidden technology or performance enhancers. Let them, Marcus said, stretching his sore muscles. We'll agree to any scan or test they want. The more they investigate, the more obvious it'll be that this is all natural. But their preparation wasn't without risk. Hegemony agents had already tried infiltrating the station twice. Both attempts failed. It turned out eliminating all hackable technology made security much simpler. Still, the close calls served as reminders of what they were up against. One evening, after a particularly grueling training session, Marcus found Lyra in the station's observatory. The transparent dome offered a spectacular view of the asteroid field and the stars beyond. Credit for your thoughts? He asked, joining her at the viewport. I was thinking about choices, she replied softly. My people chose to pursue natural evolution, developing abilities that others would consider miraculous. Your people chose technology, trying to force evolution through artificial means. And now here you are, proving there's another way. Marcus considered this. Maybe that's what the hegemony really fears. Not that natural ability might be better than technology, but that having a choice threatens their control. If people see there are different paths to advancement, they might start questioning other hegemony policies, Lyra finished. She turned to him, her galaxy eyes serious. Why did you choose to stay natural? Really? Marcus was quiet for a moment. I lost my sister to neural degradation, he finally admitted. Early prototype augments. She was brilliant, a physicist working on faster-than-light travel. The hegemony convinced her she could work better, faster, with their improvements. Within a year, she couldn't remember her own name. Lyra's hand found his, squeezed gently. I'm sorry. The worst part was, right before the end, she was lucid for a moment. She looked at me and said, I forgot what it felt like to be human. That's when I knew I'd never let them put that stuff in my head. Their moment was interrupted by Aria's excited voice. "Mr. Marcus. Dr. Sarah says it's time for zero-G training." Marcus groaned dramatically, making the little girl giggle. "Your mother's right, kid. I must be insane." But he was smiling as he headed to the training chamber. The days blurred together in a rhythm of training, planning, and preparation. Word continued spreading through underground channels. By the time they reached Europa, they'd have an audience ready to witness their demonstration. "You know," Sarah commented, watching Marcus complete a particularly impossible-seeming sequence of movements, "win or lose, you're already proving something important." "What's that?" "That humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or even our natural abilities. It's our capacity to choose our own path forward." As the date of the Olympics drew closer, tension mounted in New Darwin. They all knew they'd get only one chance to show the galaxy that natural human potential was far from exhausted. The hegemony's perfect artificial world was about to face its greatest challenge, not from advanced technology, but from the raw, untamed power of natural evolution. And watching it all through her unique vision, little Aria saw the streams of energy growing stronger, brighter, as if the universe itself was holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. The games begin. Europa's surface glittered like a cracked diamond, its ice fields reflecting Jupiter's distant light. The pure strain Olympic Stadium, carved into the moon's frozen crust, stood as a testament to human engineering, though ironically, much of it was built by unaugmented workers who preferred traditional construction methods. Quite a turnout, Marcus observed from their preparation chamber. Through the viewport, they could see crowds filing into the stadium. Not just humans, but aliens from across known space had come to witness this unprecedented competition. "The hegemony's here in force," Sarah noted, checking the security feeds. Military ships in orbit, security personnel, throughout the crowd. "They're nervous." Lyra adjusted Marcus's training suit, all natural materials, no performance enhancement features. "They should be. Win or lose today, people will see there's another way forward." The past 3 months had transformed Marcus. Without any technological assistance, he'd pushed the boundaries of human capability through sheer determination and specialized training. Now, as he warmed up for the coming trials, his movements held a fluid grace that made even augmented athletes stop and stare. "Remember," Sarah briefed him one final time, "they'll be watching for any sign of hidden technology. The scanners will be at maximum sensitivity." "Let them scan," Marcus grinned. "They won't find anything but pure human potential." A chime announced the opening ceremonies. As Marcus made his way to the athlete's entrance, Aria tugged at his hand. "Your aura's super bright today, Mr. Marcus. Like a supernova." "Thanks, kid. I'll try to put on a good show." The stadium erupted in murmurs as Marcus entered alongside the other competitors. Most were heavily augmented, their chrome and synthetic parts gleaming under the lights. Next to them, his plain appearance drew curious and often dismissive looks. The first event was strength testing. An augmented athlete stepped up, his hydraulic-enhanced muscles whirring as he lifted a massive weight, 5 times what an unmodified human should be capable of handling. Then it was Marcus's turn. The crowd fell silent as he approached the weights. He closed his eyes, centering himself as Sarah had taught him, feeling the potential energy flowing through his natural muscles. "Impossible," someone shouted as Marcus not only matched but exceeded the augmented athlete's lift. His face showed strain, but his technique was perfect, using leverage and momentum in ways the rigid programming of enhancement systems hadn't considered. Event after event, Marcus demonstrated what dedicated training and understanding of natural human biomechanics could achieve. In speed trials, he used running techniques perfected by ancient tribes. For agility tests, he combined parkour with martial arts in ways that made the augmented athlete's movements seem stiff and predictable. In the observation booth, Sarah monitored his vital signs. "Everything's clean, no enhancement signatures, no hidden tech. He's doing this all naturally." The hegemony officials were growing visibly agitated. During a brief break, one of them approached Marcus. We know you're cheating somehow, the chrome-faced man hissed. No unmodified human could perform at this level. Marcus just smiled. Maybe you've forgotten what humans are truly capable of. But don't worry, we're about to remind everyone. The final event was combat simulation, a complex obstacle course requiring strength, speed, and strategic thinking. Marcus faced off against the hegemony's champion, an athlete so heavily augmented that barely any original human parts remained. As they took their positions, Arya's voice rang out clear and innocent, "Look at their auras, mommy. The metal man's is all dark and broken, but Mr. Marcus is shining." The observation caused a stir in the crowd. Lyra stepped forward, her royal bearing commanding attention. "My daughter sees energy patterns that your instruments cannot detect. The neural degradation in heavily augmented individuals is visible to her natural abilities that evolution gave us without any technological intervention." The course began. The augmented champion moved with brutal efficiency, his enhanced systems calculating optimal paths and responses. But Marcus flowed like water, adapting instantly to changing conditions, finding solutions no computer would consider. Halfway through, something unexpected happened. The champion's movements became erratic. His augmentations, pushed to their limits, began showing signs of neural feedback. Marcus could have pressed his advantage, but instead, he stopped. "Your systems are redlining," he called out. "Neural degradation is setting in. If you don't stop now, you could suffer permanent damage." The champion snarled, pushing forward, but his movements grew increasingly uncontrolled. Finally, his systems locked up completely, leaving him frozen mid-motion. Sarah's voice came over the stadium speakers, "This is what we've been trying to warn you about. Extensive augmentation is causing widespread neural degradation. We have the data to prove it." As medical teams rushed to help the fallen champion, Marcus addressed the stunned crowd. "The human body and mind are incredible things, capable of amazing feats without artificial enhancement. We're not against technology, we're against the belief that we can't progress without replacing what makes us human." The stadium erupted in chaos as reporters rushed to broadcast what they'd witnessed. The hegemony officials huddled an emergency consultation, their perfectly ordered world shaken by this public demonstration. But it wasn't over yet. As Marcus rejoined his friends, Sarah's expression was grim. "They won't take this lying down. The hegemonies built their entire society on the superiority of artificial enhancement. They'll try to silence us, discredit us, whatever it takes." "Let them try," Marcus said, watching Arya play with a zero-G bubble of water, her natural abilities manipulating it in ways no technology could replicate. "The truth is out now. People will start asking questions, exploring alternatives." Lyra touched his arm gently. "You've given hope to more than just my people today. You've shown everyone that there are always choices, always different paths forward." As they prepared to leave the stadium, alerts blared. Hegemony warships were moving into attack positions around Europa. "They're not going to let us leave, are they?" Marcus sighed, though he was still smiling. "Well, good thing impossible odds are my specialty. Ready for another adventure?" The real battle, it seemed, was just beginning. Revolution rising. Alarms blared throughout Europa's Olympic complex as hegemony warships descended from orbit. But in the chaos, something unexpected was happening. Hundreds of athletes, both augmented and natural, were stepping forward to stand with Marcus and his companions. The neural degradation data was the tipping point, Sarah explained as they hurried through the corridors. Many of the augmented athletes have been experiencing symptoms, but were afraid to speak up. Now they know they're not alone. The stadium's main display showed hegemony troops deploying across the facility. Their commander's artificially amplified voice echoed through the complex, "This is your only warning. Surrender the pure strain agitators and the celestial fugitives." Marcus shared a look with Lyra. "You thinking what I'm thinking? That this would be the perfect moment to reveal what else we've been working on at New Darwin?" She smiled. "Arya, sweetheart, remember what we practiced?" The little girl nodded excitedly. What happened next stunned everyone watching. Arya raised her hands, and suddenly the energy patterns she could see became visible to all. The stadium filled with swirling lights, showing the stark difference between the healthy auras of natural beings and the fractured energy patterns of the heavily augmented. "This is no trick," Lyra announced, her voice carrying across the stunned crowd. "My daughter's natural abilities allow her to perceive and manipulate energy fields. Something your technology has tried and failed to replicate." Marcus stepped forward. "Look at yourselves," he called to the hegemony troops. "Look at what your augmentations are really doing to you. You're not becoming superior, you're losing pieces of your humanity." Some of the troops hesitated, their own neural implants providing uncomfortable confirmation of his words. Others lowered their weapons, the evidence of their deteriorating condition now visible to all. But the hegemony commander wasn't giving up. "Open fire," he ordered. The loyal troops raised their weapons, but before they could shoot, something remarkable happened. The augmented athletes who had joined their cause stepped forward, using their enhancements one last time, not to fight, but to protect. They formed a barrier between the troops and the pure strains, their actions a choice made by human consciousness, not computer logic. "We choose to stand with humanity," one of them declared, his chrome implants gleaming. "Natural or augmented, we should have the right to choose our path." The stadium's communication systems suddenly crackled to life with messages from across human space. Other pure strain communities were emerging from hiding, sharing their own achievements and discoveries. The revolution that had started here was spreading like wildfire. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. "We don't want to destroy augmentation technology. We want people to have informed choice. To know the risks and alternatives. To understand that human potential isn't limited to what we can add to our bodies." In orbit, more ships were arriving, but not hegemony vessels. Independent colonies, alien allies, and even some hegemony worlds that had grown weary of enforced improvement were sending support. The hegemony commander, seeing his forces wavering, made one last desperate move. He activated the kill switches in his troops' augmentations, trying to force their compliance through override protocols. But Arya was ready. The little girl's power had grown stronger through training, and now she reached out to the energy fields within the affected troops. Her natural abilities did what no technology could. She stabilized their neural patterns, preventing the forced override. "That's impossible," the commander raged. "No natural ability could interface with our systems." "She's not interfacing with your systems," Marcus explained, pride evident in his voice. "She's working with the human energy patterns underneath all that technology. Something your sensors can't even detect." The tide had turned. Across the stadium, augmented individuals were making their own choices, many asking for help in safely removing or reducing their enhancements. The hegemony's control was crumbling in real time. "This isn't just about natural versus artificial," Lyra addressed the watching galaxy. "It's about recognizing that evolution, both natural and technological, should serve humanity, not control it." The hegemony commander, his own neural implants beginning to fail, finally lowered his weapon. What happens now?" Marcus stepped forward, offering his hand. "Now we work together. Find a balance between natural development and technological assistance. Create a future where both paths are valid choices, not enforced mandates." As the tension in the stadium dissolved into celebration, Sarah was already organizing medical teams to help those suffering from neural degradation. Pure strain doctors would work alongside technological specialists, combining their knowledge to heal rather than override. Arya, exhausted but happy, tugged at Marcus's sleeve. "Look," she pointed to the energy patterns still visible throughout the stadium. "The lights are all dancing together now." Indeed, the auras of natural and augmented humans were beginning to harmonize, creating patterns more beautiful than either could produce alone. It was a visual representation of the change sweeping through human space, not a victory of one path over another, but the beginning of a new understanding. "You know," Marcus said to Lyra as they watched the celebration unfold, When you first offered to be my concubine, I don't think either of us expected to help spark a revolution. Lyra laughed, a sound like starlight. Perhaps we could discuss a different kind of partnership now? One based on choice rather than desperation? Before Marcus could respond, Sarah interrupted with urgent news. The Hegemony's Central Council was calling for negotiations. They wanted to discuss a peaceful transition to a system of voluntary enhancement. The revolution had succeeded not through violence or superiority, but through demonstration and choice. As humans and aliens celebrated together in the Europa Stadium, a new age was dawning, one where natural evolution and technological advancement could coexist, each enriching the other. But for Marcus, Lyra, and little Arya, their personal adventure was just beginning. After all, someone would need to help guide humanity through this transition, and who better than those who had proved that the impossible was simply a matter of perspective? A new dawn. 1 year after the Europa Olympics, the landscape of human space had transformed dramatically. The new Darwin facility, once a hidden refuge, had become the center of a revolutionary movement combining natural human development with ethical technological advancement. Marcus stood at its observation dome, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. "Still can't believe they made me chancellor of this place," he muttered, adjusting his decidedly non-technological formal wear. "Who better?" Lyra approached, her galaxy eyes twinkling. The man who proved that pure human potential could match any enhancement. She now served as the ambassador between natural and augmented societies, her diplomatic skills helping ease the transition. Today marked the opening of the Evolutionary Institute, a facility dedicated to studying and developing both natural abilities and safe technological advancement. The main hall was filled with an extraordinary mix of beings, pure-strain humans practicing ancient techniques alongside partially augmented individuals learning to balance their enhancements with their natural capabilities. "Daddy, look!" Arya called out, demonstrating her latest achievement. The young Celestial, now officially Marcus's daughter through marriage to Lyra, had learned to project energy fields that could help stabilize failing neural implants. Her natural abilities were proving crucial in helping those who wished to safely reduce their augmentations. Sarah, heading the medical division, was working with a group of former hegemony scientists. The key was stopping trying to force evolution, she explained to visitors. Whether through natural development or technological assistance, true advancement comes from working with our bodies, not against them. The changes hadn't been easy. Some hegemony hardliners still resisted, claiming that unrestricted natural evolution was dangerous and unpredictable. But they couldn't argue with the results. More and more augmented individuals were choosing to scale back their enhancements, finding a balance between natural and artificial capabilities. "Remember when you first found us in that marketplace?" Lyra asked Marcus as they watched Arya play with a group of children, some natural, some partially augmented, all learning from each other. "Did you ever imagine it would lead to this?" Marcus chuckled. "I was just looking for something interesting to do. Ended up helping change the course of human evolution instead." The Institute had become more than just a research facility. It was a symbol of a new path forward, one where humanity could explore all possibilities of advancement without losing what made them human in the first place. They'd discovered something remarkable. As people reduced their reliance on heavy augmentation, many began developing natural abilities they never knew they had. It seemed the human body had been evolving all along, but excessive technology had been suppressing these developments. "Mr. Marcus," a young student called out. "Can you show us that impossible move again? The one from the Olympics?" Marcus grinned. "Nothing's impossible, kid. That's the whole point." He demonstrated the complex maneuver, his natural muscles and reflexes performing feats that once required extensive augmentation. Around him, students both natural and partially enhanced watched in awe, each seeing the potential within themselves. Later that evening, as celebrations continued throughout the station, Marcus found himself back at the observation dome. Jupiter's massive form filled the view, a reminder of how far they'd come from those first desperate days. "Getting philosophical in your old age?" Sarah joined him, her dark eyes twinkling. Just thinking about choices, he replied. For so long, humanity thought we had to choose between natural evolution and technological advancement. Turns out we just needed to learn how to combine them properly. The proof was all around them. The station itself now ran on a combination of advanced technology and naturally developed abilities. Celestial energy manipulation worked alongside solar panels. Traditional healing techniques complemented modern medicine. Aria's voice carried through the station's corridors as she taught other children to see and work with energy fields. Her natural abilities had grown exponentially, but more importantly, she was helping bridge the gap between different paths of human development. You know what the best part is? Lyra said, joining them with glasses of non-synthesized champagne. Everyone gets to choose their own path now. Natural, enhanced, or anywhere in between. The station's alert system chimed softly, more ships arriving. Word of their success had spread, drawing seekers and scholars from across known space. Each brought their own knowledge, their own approaches to evolution and advancement. To choices, Marcus raised his glass. And to proving that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our technology or even our natural abilities, it's in our capacity to forge our own path forward. As if in response, the station's lights dimmed briefly as Aria and her students created a spectacular display of natural energy manipulation, their combined abilities painting the space with swirling patterns of light. Augmented viewers captured the display with their enhanced senses, while natural humans experienced it through their developing sensitivity to energy fields. You know, Sarah mused, the hegemony was right about one thing: humanity did need to evolve. They just didn't understand that evolution isn't about replacing what we are, it's about becoming more of who we can be. The celebration continued into the night, a testament to how far they'd come. Natural humans demonstrated impossible feats of physical prowess, while partially augmented individuals showed how technology could enhance rather than replace human capabilities. Celestials shared their evolutionary insights, while other alien species brought their own unique perspectives. Marcus watched it all with quiet satisfaction. From a simple cargo pilot looking for excitement, he'd become a symbol of human potential. But more importantly, he'd found something he never knew he was looking for: a family, a purpose, and a future where humanity could reach for the stars without losing touch with their essential nature. Ready for our next adventure? Lyra asked, taking his hand. Marcus smiled, looking at the stars beyond Jupiter. Always. After all, we've got a whole galaxy of possibilities to explore. As Aria's energy lights danced across the station, marking the beginning of a new chapter in human evolution, it was clear that their story, like humanity's potential, was far from over. The universe, it seemed, had only begun to see what was possible when natural and artificial advancement learned to work together, guided by the most powerful force of all, human choice.